Hello and welcome to GSMA APAC's Digital Champions short video series. I'd like to welcome Aamir Ibrahim from Jazz from Pakistan, all the way from Pakistan. Thank you for joining us this morning, Aamir, and look forward to your insights and perspectives today.
Thank you for having me over here, Julian. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, let's get straight into it then. So you have a long history in telecoms, and I think my guess is like you were one of the earliest employees of Jazz back in 1994. You have spent some time in the car industry before coming back to telecoms in Pakistan with Telenor and back to Jazz a few years now. Tell me, how did your career journey start, and how has it made you a leader that you are now, and what would your recommendations for somebody else starting their career journey now in Pakistan?
Great. It's been, within the telecom world, advantage of spending about 7-8 of those years, as you mentioned, in the automotive industry. And I think careers are marathons, and it's difficult to, when you start, it's very difficult to think about how long it's going to last. And as long as you're open to the diversity of new challenges, I think you have to keep on looking at it as short sprints in a big marathon. That's the right way to look at a career. But to make those sprints more enjoyable, I think if you can add diversity to your roles, you will have a rewarding thing. So it's like difficult to keep on doing a marathon on a treadmill because it becomes insanely boring. But when you change the landscape, you change the inclines, you change the environment around you, you get less bored. Same as the way that you look at a career. So when I took a sabbatical to go back and do my master's after about working in telecom for about 7 years, it was precisely for this reason, so that you can get a slightly different perspective. You refresh yourself with whatever is happening academically and in a test lab environment. But also subsequently, when I worked in the automotive industry, it was a different geography, it was a different industry, very different in terms of pace compared to telecom. But when I look back at it now, it was incredibly informative and insightful because as you try to become a business leader, first of all, the exposure or the diversity of those exposures and experiences eventually plays a part in how you evolve. So I'm really grateful, for having that opportunity of having worked in a different industry, which at that particular time, I didn't really appreciate that much. So as you go through the journey, just try to enjoy the journey as much as you can. In hindsight, it is much easier to connect the dots, as Steve Jobs said. Yeah.
That's a really nice inspiration, I think, for a lot of Pakistanis to see the potential of starting out in Pakistan. But moving on to, say, the mobile industry, it's advanced significantly in recent years, but penetration of mobile broadband adoption is still pretty low compared to some of the other countries in the region. And what do you see as the focus? What do we need to focus on to increase the inclusiveness of digital and prepare for 5G in the coming years?
Yeah. So, Pakistan is a big country, both geographically and a huge population, 5th largest in terms of a number of people living here, 220 million. And when you look at the penetration rates of even 80%, it's not impressive compared to where the rest of the world is, especially even in emerging markets. I think the challenge is for us more around broadband. And while it has only been about 4 or 5 years since we really got into this 4G race, the licenses were issued in 2014. Jazz, which is the leading telecom operator in Pakistan, acquired its spectrum in 2017. So we've had only about about 3.5-4 years in which we have added about 20+ million customers. But given the scale and scope of possibilities, it still remains a less impressive number than where I would like it to be. I wouldn't bore you with all the reasons why we couldn't. I think the important thing is that where we are is not what we're happy with. And what do we need to do is really to create 2 elements to increase the broadband penetration. A, affordable handsets, and B, making all handsets more affordable. Pakistan is a unique example where the handset purchasing decision is completely decoupled from the SIM buying one. And I think the first entry barrier is that of handset purchase, which is a more involved decision. And the affordability over there basically becomes the entry barrier to whether people will use broadband or not. So as a company, what we have now looked at is really working on an installment model. And while installments is nothing new in the telecom world, in a country where less than 1% of the handsets are sold by the 4 telecom operators and 99% sold in the open market, I think we lost the engagement with customers to come to us as telecom operators to have some kind of a solution. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that we see in terms of broadband penetration. So today, I think as a country, we have about 30% 4G customers out of the 170 million that we have. You talked about 5G. 5G is certainly, something that is on our radar screen. But when I spoke to people from South Korea, they introduced 5G when they had about 80% 4G penetration. So there has to be a critical cut over to go to the new technology. And for us, whether it's a country or as an operator, to invest that much onto something super sophisticated while we haven't taken the masses along with us to even get to a point where they're using internet and smartphones to allocate a significant portion of our resources on 5G, I think is a little bit too early. So what we have to do and think about is 5G readiness rather than 5G launches. And I think in that, we are accelerating our efforts to at least get the majority of our customers using broadband. That would be my first goal.
Okay, fantastic. So I suppose Jazz is a leader in diversity and inclusion, and you're often very much the public champion for these issues. As a leader, how important is it for you to be a champion and a public role model in those issues within the company and also publicly?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm a role model or not. I think I certainly do talk a lot about it because any country, and in Pakistan we have about, like many other countries, close to about 50% of our population are females. And if you're not really engaging them into productive work environment, you're marginalizing them or invisibilizing them, if that's a word to be used at all. And I think technology is a great equalizer in terms of providing opportunities, whether it is for education, whether it is for doing trade or getting them financially included into the economy. So what we do is a really great and a very logical platform for women to start becoming a more integrated, wholesome and contributory member of the society. And once you start bringing them in here, it is going to be much more difficult for the silent majority to keep them anonymized or marginalized. So I do it from multiple reasons, not only because it's the right thing to do, but quite honestly, very bluntly speaking, for our country to move forward, how can you actually operate when 50% of them are operating or at a suboptimal level from contributing towards the economy? So it makes good business sense for the country as a whole. It's the right ethical thing to do at a human level. And that's why I'm very vocal about it at whatever forums that we do. Now, as an organization, Jazz within Pakistan is a leading organization, perhaps one of the largest private companies in terms of revenue, but also in terms of impact and scale, having 65 million consumers. It's a very big consumer name. We have to take that role modelship or role model leadership as an organization to make sure that we bring in the smartest and the best and the most willing and hardworking brains and bodies into our organization, with a special focus to making sure that this is an organization where, energized, ambitious women find a home to come and to be all that they can be. So that is certainly an ambition for ourselves. And I think it starts from the top. If I don't have women in leadership position, it's going to be more of a lip service. I can't change my own sex and become a woman and be a better role model. But short of that, in my leadership team, we have 3 out of 9 leaders who are women, which is 33%, but which is still better than many other organizations. I would love it to be closer to 50%. And we always look at that. But, we're trying to make sure that there is more visible success stories in our organization so that more young women, when they're finishing colleges, look at us as a place where they can pursue their careers and their ambitions.
Impressive. And I think GSMA thanks you for being such a good partner with, such a leading partner in the Connected Women program as well.
And if I could just take one more minute on that, you know, Jazz Cash, which is a financial product in trying to help improve financial inclusion, I think in such areas we find women even more marginalized. So while they have mobile phones, they still don't have access and you know, ownership of their own financial well-being. So I think in that particular area, we are over-indexing our support to make sure that women get a chance to be more financially independent.
Fantastic.
And by the way, I think it was in 2017 we did win a GLOMO award.
Yeah, you did. And been a strong supporter since, and look forward to continuing. I suppose you've taken that same energy, I think, into COVID-19 response. I mean, I sit here in Indonesia interviewing you, and I know from a country of similar size, the numbers of and how it managed the virus have been pretty significantly different. So, I mean, Pakistan has been commended internationally for its collaboration and response to the virus. What do you think are the key factors in beating expectations and the role of technology in managing the pandemic?
Yeah. So I think, by the way, Pakistan is a success story right now. Well, I wouldn't call it a race, but the crisis isn't over. But where we are compared to where we were 3 months ago, and compared to where many countries of similar population and demographics are, Pakistan is doing much better. And while we're very grateful and thankful, we may not have all the scientific reasons on where we are, we're still happy to take the credit and the success, and I hope that the numbers stay where they are. But initially, I think the country did a few good things, including introducing the concept of a smart lockdown, which relied on technology. So we had a national command and control center where every morning we looked as a country holistically on our logistical challenges to our economic imperatives to the use of technology. And unlike many other countries, we didn't have as many smartphones. But with every test conducted, we had two other columns. One was the ID card number, the computerized national ID card number, along with that, the mobile number. And we were able to identify pockets where people were getting more positive cases. And our regulator provided services and messages to those customers who were perhaps in contact with those who had come positive. So we were able to proactively send messages and said that so-and-so that you interacted with perhaps last week or is in your contact list or may have called you has been identified as a positive case, as a pre-warning, right? And then when we saw these clusters of greater number of positive cases in certain locations, we then ring-fenced that location rather than completely shutting down the entire city. So that was the concept of smart lockdowns, and that I think has contributed to where we are as a country in terms of lower numbers. But that is one of the hypotheses. There are other things that may have been in place. We are happy to let the mystery be, but I think there were some good interventions using technology that resulted in the success that we see today.
Fantastic news. And I suppose taking that further energy from Connected Women into virus response, I suppose Jazz invests heavily in the youth, you know, entrepreneurs and startups in Pakistan. What would be your advice to other industry leaders on the importance of investment in the youth to you as a leader and as for the vision for Pakistan?
Yeah. So I think, you know, of course, we operate in an environment where new ideas come from anywhere. And, you know, like we just think that the new generation is going to be more tech savvy, and in many ways they are, and we rely on reverse mentoring because they live in they're digital natives as opposed to us who are digital immigrants. I think my message to other business leaders, regardless of the industry that they're working in, is to recognize that the industry or their business is going to get disrupted. And it's not necessarily that only telecom and technology are going to be these leading companies. It's going to be any kind of company. So finance is going to get disrupted, and we're going to call it fintech. Agriculture, which is a very traditional business, is going to be agri-tech. Education is ed-tech. So there's going to be a tech component in all of these industries. That's going to become the new foundation layer. So the more open-minded the leaders are in terms of bringing in not only youth, youth automatically biases us to an age. I would call it the mental youth, which is the new thinking and the foolish inquisitiveness of asking questions and trying to do things differently. I think this is what every company must try to strive to do a better job at, whether they are from the technology industry or a traditional industry. So it's really that putting that emphasis on learning, unlearning, and experimenting. And in those cases, sometimes the kids who are just graduating out of school are perhaps a little bit less shackled by what they know and more free with what they don't know. And that's why I think we need to bring them more into our organizations.
Okay, I think that's great advice for our whole industry, really. So one final question for you then is as a champion and leader for the mobile industry, not just in Pakistan, but across the region. I mean, GSMA has a Thrive event coming up early in November, where we bring together leaders from government and industry and ecosystem to debate some of these key issues for digital societies. As a leader, how important is it for you to engage with the industry regionally and globally to share ideas and share your visions and discuss some of these challenges industry faces?
Absolutely important, right? We become a little bit boring and non-learning when we keep on walking the same path. It is only through interactions with others that there is some new thinking that comes to us. Either you will be a recipient of insights or you may help somebody else. But this is the beauty of this new environment where we are co-creating solutions. And I think we need to get past that thing on, you know, it won't work over here. Or the whole beauty of being connected is that you can learn at a much faster pace than you have ever done in the history of mankind. So I really look forward to these interactions. If you go in with an open mind, you always pick up ideas. And that's what has happened to us in the past. And I think in many ways we contribute also. And as long as you have an open mind and an eagerness to continue to learn, I find these events and interactions extremely useful.
Okay. Thanks for your time today, Aamir. I mean, great insights for industry and people in Pakistan, I think, to look up to you as a leader and from the region, inspiring. So thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Julian. All right, good.